Hello, BookTube, and welcome to Friday Reads, that venerable BookTube tradition where BookTubers look back at the week that they've had in reading and look forward to the stuff that they've got on plate and the stuff that's immediately on the horizon. I love these videos, and I want to start making regular Friday Reads videos, formal Friday Reads videos. I've had an excellent reading week, much better than I thought. I've read far more books than I expected to, and had a few reading highlights. And now it's time for me to look at the weekend. I don't plan on doing much of anything this weekend other than reading and writing. And I have two books that are on my docket, two books that I will be reading this weekend. And then I want to show you a bunch of new arrivals that are possibilities, and then we'll go through a little mail and see if that changes the calculus. So there's a little bit of everything in this video. So the first two that I want to show you are new arrivals in finished copy, and that is kicking the pants enough for me to get to them. The first one is by John Logery and Blythe Randolph, and it is Dorothy Day. It's a new biography of famous American Catholic activist Dorothy Day, which I didn't really think was possible. Dorothy Day was brilliant. She was a brilliant writer, a brilliant thinker, but she led a life that I would have thought was so contradictory and disorganized that it would defy the efforts of even two biographers teaming up. And we shall see. We shall see. I know a bit about, maybe quite a bit about this figure, but not. I don't think I've ever read a biography of her before. So I'm sure there'll be a ton of stuff that I don't know. And then this next one is a February release. This is the finished copy of The Lucky Star by William Vollmann. I read the advanced copy of this. It's another gigantic book from him. In fact, how long is this thing? Does this count as a chunker? No, it doesn't. It's 650 pages long, comparatively svelte for William Vollmann. And in it, he returns to some previous characters and the milieu of previous books, especially the royal family, but presents new elements, new narrative elements that haven't been very strong in his fiction until now. I think that Vollmann is, I wouldn't say consistently brilliant, but a genuinely formidable writer, a foremost writer, fiction or nonfiction, of the last half century. So I never miss a book that he writes. I have written about quite a few of them. I've reviewed quite a few of them. I don't think that I'll be reviewing this one, except maybe for Open Letters Review. But that certainly counts. So we shall see. I've described before the sort of the rough ritual that I do here. Why if it's a big book or if a complex book, I like to get a feel for it first. I like to read it or read chunks of it first, and then, as with the finished copy here, I will go at it with notes and with full critical attention, and with blinkers on to the rest of the world, to figure out what I want to make sense of it, how I want to make sense of it. That second reading, that critical reading, even if it's not second, even if it's the first time that I do it, always happens with the assumption in my mind being that I'm going to write the thing up, that I'm going to review it. That concentrates your critical faculty, my critical faculties anyway, quite a bit when I do that. So those are the two that are on my docket. They're fairly hefty, but I read a lot, and I read all day long and all night long, so I have more room in my weekend than just these. And one of the things that I got, a block of new arrivals that I got, you may not have seen if you don't follow me on Twitter, on the Twitter. Twitter is an intensely toxic place. You have to curate it very actively and very attentively, or you will be exposed to stuff that will literally ruin every day, every minute of your life. There are people and non-people, bots. Half the accounts on Twitter are automated. There are accounts on Twitter that exist only to ruin your day. That's all they want to do. And they're very good at it, so they'll work if you let them. So I try to limit my contact to Twitter, and I try to limit what I look at. It is possible to curate the Twitter experience into something that's almost purely positive, that is a definite addition to your day. And that's what I try to do. And I posted on Twitter this amazing thing that I'm now going to show you. It's a little too big even for me to make a Steve haul of the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston, a used bookstore that I love. I've been shopping there and making a nuisance of myself there for better than half a century. The other day I was there and I noticed that they had a large number of pastiche novels of Conan the Barbarian by a whole bunch of different authors. And I had a bunch of credit thanks to you. You people keep me well supplied in credit at the Brattle. I really appreciate it. Feel free to call them at any time and say, I want to buy store credit for Steve. They'll know who you're talking about. But it occurred to me when I was looking at these... Sorry, I'm awful sniffly today. When I was looking at these Conan pastiche novels, it occurred to me how seldom I see them anymore. This is a note that I've said many times on this channel. Mark Richardson and I often talk about it when we're up in the old farmhouse, which is that mass markets just in general are getting rarer to find, which makes sense because they were made in their abundance for only about 50 years. That is a large number of mass market paperback copies, but it's still a finite number, and you got to figure a lot of them get damaged or thrown away every year. It's attrition, and you never see a lot of them in one place. So that day when I was noticing that, when I was thinking that, I thought, you shouldn't just stare at these things. You should get them. Even if you're not in the mood to read them all or any of them right now, you should get them because you're never going to see them in this abundance again. So that day, using credit, I got 4 or 5. And then I came up with a madcap idea, a fiendish plan, which was for the Brattle to give me the rest of them as credit towards my next offload of books for them, for the store. And they did that, and they brought them by. I didn't have to lug them home, so I want to show them to you rapid fire, one at a time. There's a lot of them here. I now have all the Conan pastiche novels I could possibly want. And now that I'm faced with the nightmare of not knowing which ones I have the next time I see any. So I'm going to be buying Conan pastiche novels and realizing they're doubles for the rest of my days. But we have John Maddox Roberts. I mentioned him before. He's the author of the SPQR series of Roman murder mysteries. This is Conan the Rogue. Here he's facing a giant monster. And then we have Leonard Carpenter. This is Conan the Savage. There he is in a horrible swamp. Why there's a skeleton up on a tree branch, I don't know, but there are demons that have their attention on our hero. And Leonard Carpenter's name also came up the last time I showed you Conan pastiche novels. And then Roland Green. This is Conan at the Demon's Gate. Here he is fighting a stone statue. These are trade paperbacks. The ones that I'm showing you first are trade paperbacks. Quite a few of them. This is then Roland Green again. This is Conan the Valiant, again facing another monster. Then Steve Perry, the science fiction author Steve Perry, did quite a few Conan books. This is Conan the Defiant. Here he is, oddly not quite facing his foes, but I guess there wouldn't be a good camera angle. And then the last of the trade paperbacks is, again, Steve Perry. This is Conan the Indomitable. And here he is facing a corpse-colored sorceress on top of a giant worm creature. I love it. If any of you ever find yourself facing a giant worm creature being ridden by a corpse-colored sorceress, a little piece of advice: don't use that as a fighting stance. That is not a good fighting stance. So those are the trade paperbacks. And then we have a ton of mass markets. We have, again, John Maddox Roberts. This is Conan the Valorous in a mass market. Again, Leonard Carpenter. I guess maybe 4 or 5 guys had this market cornered. This is Conan the Outcast, fighting a living tree there, a horrible evil ent. Then Conan the Champion by John Maddox Roberts. Again, so we have the same figure there, fairly standard Conan cover. We have Conan and the Death Lords of Thanza by Roland Green. There he is, having freshly killed a prehistoric reptile bird. Then Steve Perry again. This is Conan the Fearless. This is a Boris Vallejo cover. So slightly better, although once again Conan is not facing his enemy. He's posing for the camera instead. Then Conan the Formidable by Steve Perry. Somewhat lackluster title. This is Conan the More Than Adequate. but I'm sure that the book will be good. Then Conan the Great. Simply Conan the Great. By Leonard Carpenter, and here he is with an axe facing a giant spider. Then a very thin thing that I think is a double already. I'm pretty sure I have this already. This is Elsprague de Camp, Conan and the Spider God. Pretty sure I have this already. I'll have to check and see, but if it's true, then it's just the beginning of the march of the doubles, because I'm going to have doubles of these things forever. And then lastly, Conan the Guardian by Roland Green, where he's facing a snake, a giant serpent. So this, I don't know if I can get these to behave in a Steve pile, but these all came to me today. So in terms of a Friday Reads, I am going to thumb through a few of these things, and one or two of these I'm going to read today. I'm going to read, not today, but this weekend. I'm thinking that I will concentrate on the trade paperbacks, get those out of the way. But that is an active part of my Friday Reads, is that it will include Conan. And these, having the pile of these things, plus the pile of the ones that I already have, it's a whole shelf of Conan pastiche novels, and it reminds me that I have been remiss in buying the omnibus editions that are coming out of reprint comic books from Marvel. Marvel Comics just recently got the franchise back to Robert E. Howard properties and are driving them into the ground. The sales are just awful. The sales have cratered. So who knows how long they'll keep doing that, because that's, using properties is expensive. You have to pay to do that. But the thing that I hoped that those comic books, those monthly comic books, Conan the Barbarian, Savage Sword of Conan, not Red Sonja, but The Age of Conan, I hoped that those would be good. And the initial run of quite a few of them was really good. But I didn't think that it would last. Marvel Comics has not pleased me in the last few years at all. It seems so universally not pleased me that it seems like it has to be an editorial decision to be the way they are. Nervous, virtue signaling, woke. The last thing in the world, the very last thing that Conan the Barbarian is woke. He is a thief, a reaver, a womanizer. There's no way to brush him up. You have to revel in that about the character. And if you don't, then you're better off not doing an adaptation of the character rather than trying to change the character. But whether or not that happens with the individual weekly comics, the thing that I hoped would happen has happened, which is that Marvel has poured a huge amount of money and attention into reprinting their run from the previous time that they had Conan. And also it turns out they have the right to reprint Dark Horse. Dark Horse Comics had Conan for a long time. They're reprinting all of those as well. That is a bonanza for a Conan fan like me. And the omnibus editions have been coming out. Conan the Barbarian and Conan, the Savage Sword of Conan, in a separate run of omnibus editions. And I think they're up to 5 or 6 now. And I only have volume 1 of each. So these are a reminder that those are fantastic, absolutely affectionate adaptations and explorations of Conan's world. At the very least, what I need is omnibus volume 2 of the Savage Sword of Conan. At the very least, I need to do that. And online, those will not be murderously expensive anymore. So these are both an addition to my potential Friday Reads and also a reminder to me that I need to get on the ball with that. And then we have the last item, which is mail. I've got 3 mail packages here, and I want to see if any one of these will go straight on the Friday Reads file, because that sometimes does happen. So let's see what this first one is. Okay. All right, this is a late March release. This could easily do it. This could easily do the very thing that I'm talking about, because this is an author that I really like. This is called Later, and this is, I think, a memoir by Paul Lisicki, My Life at the Edge of the World. His 2016 book, The Narrow Door, A Memoir of Friendship, was unanimously praised for its gorgeous language and brilliant portrayal of the relationship in full, complicated glory. Now, in his newest book, Lisicki gives us an incandescent, mold-breaking memoir that is equal parts coming-of-age story and portrait of an extraordinary, far-flung haven of artists and outsiders, roughly 3,600 in number, facing a dire AIDS crisis, with several funerals being held weekly. And that place is Provincetown, which I know quite well. I knew it in the era that he's talking about quite well. Lisicki brings us to the very specific place and time, Provincetown, in the first half of the 1990s. And he writes about the human condition so exquisitely that the book transcends specificity and becomes a meditation on what it means to be human. And the author bio that they give for Paul Lisicki only lists The Narrow Door. I wonder if they list in here. I fell in love with him for a different book entirely, Lawn Boy, which is the first book that's listed here. It might have been his debut. And it's a novel, and it's really, really good. As a gay novel, it's really, really good. I must have read The Narrow Door, but I'm not remembering it right at the moment, so maybe I didn't. But this comes out in late March. Late March is right around the corner, so this is actually a contender to be on our Friday Reads. So let's see if we have any other contenders here. Let's see what this next one is. Looks like an advanced copy. Yeah, this is an advanced copy from early May. So that might not. That might be too far ahead. I might feel a little guilty reading a May book now when I've got so many other things to do. Let's see here. So this is nonfiction. This is A Schoolmaster's War. Harry Ray, British agent in the French Resistance. Edited by Jonathan Ray. Oh, maybe that must be a relation. That must be a relation. So this is told, wartime adventures of a legendary SOE agent told in his own words. That must be his, yeah, okay, this is his son. Okay, who is a freelance historian and philosopher. So this is a schoolmaster's war. A school teacher at the start of the war, Harry Ray renounced his former pacifism with the fall of France in 1940. He was deployed into a secret branch of the British Army and parachuted into central France in April of 1943. Harry showed a particular talent for winning the confidence of local resistors and guided them in a series of dramatic sabotage operations before getting into a hand-to-hand fight with an armed German officer for which he was lucky to escape. Okay, so the son is chronicling here his father's wartime adventures. Always a tempting thing to do and a very difficult thing to do well. It's early May. It's fascinating, but it's early May, so it's probably not a contender for our Friday reads that we're slowly building here. So we'll do this last one, see if we have another contender. Okay, how odd. Okay, this is due in July, so it's not a contender, but it certainly does seem interesting. This is called Cinderbiter, Celtic Poems. And it says these are versions by Martin Shaw and Tony Hoagland. Cinderbiter collects tales and poems originally composed and performed centuries ago in Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, when notions of history and authorship were indistinguishable from the oral traditions of myth and storytelling. In the spirit of recasting these legends and voices for new audiences, celebrated mythologist and storyteller Martin Shaw and award-winning poet Tony Hoagland have created extraordinary new versions of these bardic lyrics, folkloric sagas, and heroes' journeys as they have never been rendered before. In long, shaggy tales of unlikely ascensions and previous unknown heroes such as Cinderbiter, in the shrouded origin stories of figures such as Arthur and Merlin, and in an anonymous flickering lyrics of elegy, praise, and heartbreak, these poems retain at once the rapturous supernatural imagination of the deep past, layered with an austere, devout allegiance to the Christian faith. How interesting. Okay. Well, that is very interesting, but this is, yeah, there's all sorts of variations here. Okay, but this is too far away. Just as simple as that. No other prejudice to it. It's just too far away. So it and a Schoolmaster's War are part of this mail haul, but they are not part of this Friday Reads. Whereas later by Paul Lisicki, not only about a time in gay life that I know quite well, but also about a place that I know quite well. I have visited Provincetown in all of its seasons, in all of its ages. This probably goes on the list. So what does our list look like? We have Dorothy Day, a Catholic activist, founder of a famous Catholic journal that I believe is still printed today. We have The Lucky Star by William Volman, a deep dive. We have Later by Paul Lisicki. And at least two of these Conan trade paperbacks. At least two, I'm thinking, unless I want to do more. But I think I'll leave the mass market paperbacks for another day and dig into a couple of these. Maybe one by one author and one by another. So that is, well, that was everything, wasn't it? That was New Arrivals. That was Friday Reads. It was a mail haul. Good Lord. I hope you're okay. So I'm going to wrap this up. And as usual, I want to know what you're reading this weekend. So feel free to let me know. And I will be back. So I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.